Welcome to this SPARCS webinar. For your information that the event is recorded, so just kindly note that. I wish you all very welcome to this SPARC webinar, which is about does sustainability create value in the real estate sector? And we are focusing from three different perspectives, namely from the owner perspective, project perspective, and from the risks perspective. My name is Miimu Airaksinen, and I come from RIL, which is the Finnish Association of Civil Engineers, and I have the pleasure to be part of the SPARCS project, which is a wide European development project. We have three speakers today, Wilhelm Ehrnrooth and Kaisa Kontu from Citycon and Anna Aaltonen from Newsec. Before I give the floor to our speakers, so I will shortly introduce you the SPARCS project. So SPARCS is a European Horizon 2020 R&D and innovation project, which is focusing on sustainable, energy positive and zero carbon communities. We have in Finland city of Espoo as a lighthouse city, and the other lighthouse city in this project is Leipzig. In addition, we have other fellow cities, Reykjavik, Maija, Kladno, Lviv and Firotepsyko. And the focus in this project is really to do together with the industry and company stakeholders and research and cities the transformation towards low carbon and sustainable cities, and also focusing that we are creating pleasant environments, so taking into account the citizen-centric ecosystems in this project. In Finland, we have pilots and demonstrations in Finland, in Espoo, and specifically in the three different districts. So Espoonlahti, which is a Antep block buildings blocks and Lippulaiva namely there. And then we have Leppävaara districts and Matinkylä districts. And those all are focusing slightly different perspectives to create the sustainable transformation towards zero carbon future. This is a big European project, so we have over 30 partners. And as you can see here, so we have a wide range from research partners and then many companies and cities, of course. This project is led by VTT. And now my pleasure is to give the floor to our first speakers, who is Wilhelm Ehrnrooth. He is the Group Sustainability Manager at Citycon, and he will tell us that does the sustainability create value for the building owners? And what is the role of sustainability at Citycon? So the floor is yours, Wilhelm.
All right. Thank you very much, Miimu. Let me just share my presentation with you guys, and do tell when and if you can see my presentation.
Thank you, we can see it well.
Awesome. So then we'll just get going. So, and I would ask you all to, if you have questions, just please do interrupt, give me a shout, or write something in the chat. I will not right now be able to see that, but I hope that Miimu will introduce the questions that come up through the chat. We will have some time to discuss them later, all three of the speakers as well. But yeah, as said, just go ahead and interrupt if you have some urgent questions. All right, but let's get going. Yeah, let's just find out how this should work first. All right, so just a couple of words about Citycon. So Citycon is the leading owner, manager, developer of urban community hubs or shopping centers at the moment, we should say, in the Nordics. So we have quite an extensive portfolio of shopping centers in all the Nordic countries, as well as two in Estonia. and our GLA is 1.2 million square meters. The total area of our assets is a little bit above 2 million square meters. So it's quite a large amount of building mass that is inside our portfolio. But that's maybe just a quick run through of who we are. And here we can see a little bit about where we are going. So this picture is from Iso Omena in Espoo, where I'm sitting right now. And the main point here you can see is that sustainability is a little bit part of what we do anyway. So we have a large shopping center with solar PV on the roof. We have a little bit of a green roof here. There is a metro and a bus terminal inside this complex, which is the shopping center. So that gives a quite good view on where we want to be with all of our shopping centers in the near future. And basically this means that our core assets are going to be in urban environments where people already live and or work. They're all going to be integrated better than they are today with public transportation, and it's going to be a lot more about other things than just shopping. So education, healthcare, culture, all sorts of services inside the centers. So that is going to be a quite large transformation of our company in the coming years. But just some quick backdrops to why this is actually important, not only for us, but for the whole sector. So the property sector has significant environmental impact. These figures that you can see here, 30% of the carbon emissions, 40% of energy consumption, 25% of water consumption, and 25% of water generation, or waste generation, sorry. They are approximate figures. The point here is not to go into the nitty-gritty details, how much is it where and so on, but it has a very large impact anyway. So what we do as owners of buildings has a big impact. The kicker here is that almost 60% of the value of all global assets is in real estate. So we also have quite a big impact in moving money in order to move to a more sustainable, especially climate change mitigation area. So that is just to give some background into why this is important, that the built environment and real estate owners do something in the near future. But to get one step closer, we'll take a look at our sustainability strategy. It is pieced together from 4 different parts: carbon neutral, accessible, convenient and safe, and excellence in action. And our long-term goals are that we're going to be carbon neutral by 2030. That comprises scopes 1 and 2. We are going to be 100% accessible and connected to public transport, and engage with people to come in green ways or low carbon transport to our centers, and above 50% of our visitors will arrive by public transport, foot, bike or electric vehicles. We will continuously strive to make our centers safe and hospitable and service-minded, so that visitors, customers and personnel will all feel at home and safe in our centers. And in order to get all this package together, we need to put best sustainability practices into effect. Kaisa will talk a little bit more about how we do that in Lippulaiva a little bit later, and we need to follow a clear roadmap and monitoring success, and of course also monitor failure so that we don't do them over and over again. That is actually almost as important to learn from what you've done wrong, but yeah, let's get into that maybe some other time. Then going a little bit deeper into our carbon neutral target. The idea here is that it drives energy efficiency, innovation, and it demonstrates that we are committed to tackling climate change. We are, as you can see, we have short-term targets as well as the long-term targets. I will not go into these in very much detail, but we are striving to decrease our energy consumption further and step by step in 5-year time periods. We will produce renewable energy at all of our assets in the near future, and we will use only green electricity. And we have a small portion of our net rental income budget that we use to get this done. When we look at the accessibility part, for us, since we operate shopping centers, it's important that we have a lot of visitors in our centers. And our take on this is that the best way to do this is by having public transport access that is very good, especially rail is very good at transporting large amounts of people, and it's also quite good when you look at it from the sustainability perspective. On top of that, we will promote cycling to make that easier and more pleasant in our centers. And we will, of course, also promote easy access for people with disabilities in our shopping centers. And so this means that we already have all of our centers that are connected to public transportation, but we will increase the possibilities and do it a little bit easier even in the future. Convenience and safety, it means that we have high quality tenants and customers if everything is happy and fine in our centers. So of course, having places that are at the same time travel hubs and shopping centers has a big impact on the people flow, and it also means that you have all kinds of visitors in our centers, and that means that we need to focus heavily on keeping it safe and nice in our centers. So we do quite a lot of youth cooperation and involvement projects, and we should have those in all of our centers in the near future. And we will safety certify all of our assets by the end of 2022. We have already COVID certified a large portion of our shopping centers, but we will do a separate, so to say, regular safety certification on all of our centers. Excellence in action. That just means that we do the right things and then we learn from each other, basically. So in this part, we also have, for instance, that we will Miimu certify all of our centers by the end of 2022 with a minimum level of good, and all of our new construction projects that have started after 2020 will be BREEAM Excellent certified. And this means that effectively at the end of 2022, the whole of our portfolio will be environmentally certified in one way or another. So if it's new construction, then of course it will not be in use certified, but it will be certified during the construction phase. And then we do try to involve our customers and downstream business partners by giving out a sustainability award every year, so that we try to give this a good flow for the ones that are working together with us. And if we look closely, or a little bit more closely, at how have we done, well, quite all right. We still have a little bit of way to go, so our carbon emissions have decreased quite a lot, but we still need to go down to zero, so there's quite a lot of things to do there. As said, we already are accessible by public transportation in all of our centers, but we can still do it a little bit more effectively, so that it's not about having a bus stop right outside, but maybe having the whole bus terminal inside the center. Our energy efficiency has gone down by 15%. We're going to squeeze another 10% out of there by 2025, and our BREEAM certification at the moment is at 88%, and it needs to go up to 100 in 2 years, or 2 years roughly. So there we still have a little bit to do, but that was it in a nutshell about our key results. And I think that next, Kaisa will tell you a little bit about how we put this into practice in one of our projects.
Wilhelm, before we give floor to Kaisa, so there is already a question about the viability of the business models, which is integrating the different stakeholders in kind of like, for example, in the case of shopping centers. So Pekka is asking that what about integrating kind of like different business goals, kind of like energy savings and sustainability goals, and also that you are doing jointly between the owner and the provider of the new life cycle management systems, for example, what Siemens is doing, and then you have the stores and shopkeepers and maintenance services and finances and all that. So how do you see how can you do this viable business model?
Well, that's a very good question. Of course, we do cooperate with our tenants when they do tenant fit outs. We do help them out with energy efficiency questions and so on. We have chosen not to put strict limits or descriptions of exactly what our tenants need or should do when they open a store in our shopping centers. Because there are a lot of tenants who have their own view, or they have their own looks of their stores and so on and so forth, which they really don't want to or can't deviate from. So it needs to be kind of a double discussion there, that how can you do what you want to have the looks you want, but how can you do it maybe a little bit more energy efficient? So that's something that we of course do quite a lot. And when it comes to working together with energy providers and having leased or power purchase agreements for different kind of energy solutions, we already do that. For instance, in solar power, so we have quite a lot of PPA versions for solar power on our roofs. So that is something that you of course can do. It's already, of course, always a little bit of a choice that how do you want to do it? Do you want to invest in it yourself, or do you want to have a service provider in the middle?
Right. Thank you for the answer. Pekka, did that answer to your question, or do you want to still comment or have some ideas?
Yes, thank you, Wilhelm. It was very good brief of what Citycon is doing. So I was just like envisioning that maybe in the future all like stakeholders could come more together than they do now. And in that sense, it is challenging that if the tenants and even the city, besides you guys who own these big units, but do look at it together so that we could go along the dimension of sustainability, but also not forgetting business.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think this is something that's a lot easier when we talk about new developments or projects where you have something new that's being built in connection to existing buildings. So I think, of course, yes, there should be more, I don't know if legislation, but more existing ways how to, for instance, share energy between different buildings. So for instance, if we have a large residential building and our shopping centers located close to each another, so the energy consumption is going to be very different during the different times of the day. So how, for instance, would we be able to move the energy that is used or not being used at the shopping center in the night time to the residential building and the other way around? So for instance, when everyone wakes up at 8 in the morning and takes a hot shower, can we take that excess energy and move it to our shopping center in some way? And who pays whom, what and why, and so on and so forth. So of course, there's a lot of different questions, and minimum, small example of this is what we do with the excess heat from cooling machines in big grocery stores in our shopping centers. And there, I mean, with at least the bigger players, it's not a big difficulty to use the excess heat, but it of course always needs some sort of discussion and signing papers and stuff on how this is going to be done. So of course, if there would be already legislation or rulings on how this is done, so that, for instance, if you have excess heat, you need to give it to someone who can use it for energy efficiency purposes, that would of course make life easier.
Yes, sounds you are already going on that advanced track. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. But I'll give the floor to Kaisa for a little while, and I think I'll pop back in after a while again.
Okay, so then wonderful. Let's do it on that way. There is one question waiting, but we can take after Kaisa's because it's related to Kaisa's well.
All right, I can't see my picture, but I guess I'm in the middle, so you can see me perhaps. So I will tell you about Lippulaiva, the large construction project that we are having in Espoo, and it's actually an old shopping center that was decided to totally reconstruct, and we are opening our doors in April next year. So it's many people working in the construction side at the moment, and it's exciting times going on. And Lippulaiva is also, as Miimu told, it's one of the demo sites in SPARCS project. And so, yeah, well, I just go on. First, if you want, you can grab your smartphone and take a picture of the QR code that is here in the bottom. And with that, you can go and take a visit in our virtual room of Lippulaiva. This is one way that we are kind of informing our Lippulaiva project to citizens. It's unfortunately it's in Finnish, but you can anyway go around the virtual room and look how Lippulaiva will look like when it's ready. Now when this corona situation is going on, we cannot, for example, invite citizens to our construction site, and we cannot meet them and inform citizens face to face. So this is one of kind of new ways that we want to engage our citizens and customers. And Lippulaiva is really in the core of sustainability strategy of Citycon. Lippulaiva will be a mixed-use urban development project, or it is one of that, and so it's much more than only shopping and retail. I will tell you shortly about it in the next slide. And if we are comparing the old Lippulaiva, we will have a double of annual visitors, so 8 million is the estimation, and the leasable area is 44 square meters. But if we look at it as a whole building with residential buildings and so on, it's over 160 square meters. And that figure is something that, for example, interests energy person like me. So everything must be, for example, heated up and so on. So it's really a large project and large buildings that we are having. Again, the same virtual QR code in the bottom if you want to check it, the virtual room of Lippulaiva. So, but this is the Lippulaiva block. With this one, I will just briefly go through what different types of things we will have there. The orange color presents residential buildings that will be built around Lippulaiva block. We will have a bus terminal here, and metro is going just under the Lippulaiva block, and it's a new metro station that will be opened 2023. That's the timetable that we've received from Metro. And then here is the shopping center side. We will have, for example, public library, a new library in Espoonlahti. We will have retail, of course. We will have a lot of grocery stores, offices. The green one is a senior house. Yeah, I guess I mentioned all the most important parts of the Lippulaiva. And if the one side of Lippulaiva block is approximately 100 meters long, so it's really a large project. And in Lippulaiva, Citycon is also constructing first residential buildings for our own, how do you call it, like as an asset for us. So the four residential buildings here are our own, and we are renting them out to residents of Espoo. And here's the sustainability strategy that Wilhelm just presented, and Lippulaiva is really in the core of that as well. So we will be carbon neutral from day one, and I will tell you briefly about the energy systems in a few next slides. We are having a mobility hub, so we are located where people already are, and we want to be in an urban cross point, and there will be multiple ways to come to Lippulaiva. For example, metro and bus terminal and a lot of parking spaces, but also we are providing charging stations for e-vehicles and micromobility parking spaces a lot around Lippulaiva. Then we have many citizen engagement projects already in Lippulaiva. We want to inform citizens concerning the project in many ways, and we are engaging them actively. For example, we have a body class of Lippulaiva body class that we are cooperating with. We are having other ways to cooperate with Espoonlahti youngster, and we have body families as well. We are designing together with them parts of the Lippulaiva. So it's been a really pleasure to work with citizens. And actually these three themes are the core parts of SPARCS project as well. So Citycon with Lippulaiva is concentrating with these three themes in SPARCS as well. A few words about the energy systems in Lippulaiva. So if you think about the traditional way of how heating is taking care of places on shopping malls and buildings in Finland, district heating has a very big and very large market share in large cities as Espoo is. So I would say over 70% of buildings or in Espoo is heated with district heating. In Helsinki, which is the capital, it's over 90%. And in Lippulaiva, we are doing this a bit differently. We are already having a massive geothermal heat pump system for cooling and heating. We have over 50 kilometers of energy wells, which means 170 energy wells drilled in our Lippulaiva block. And the heating capacity of the heat pump is 4 megawatts. So it's one of the largest geoenergy heat pump systems in commercial buildings in at least in Europe, perhaps even in the world. We don't at least have information about other as large as this Lippulaiva system will be. And of course, we are firstly utilizing the excess heat from the grocery stores in Lippulaiva, and also we have a possibility to store energy in the geowell. So it's really a smart heating and cooling system. And this will cover 100% of the cooling capacity needed in Lippulaiva and almost all of the heating. My approximation is 60, 69, 67, something like that. But of course, this is based on the simulations. So Lippulaiva will be ready after a year. a bit less than a year. So after that, we will start gathering data and having the real life experience of the systems. But there is already heating from the on-site system coming to construction site. So it's working already, and that we are very, very proud of that. So Adven is providing and being our energy partner in thermal energy system, and Adven is also participating in SPARCS project. And then the electricity system that we are having, this is actually, of course, we decided already in the early phase of the project that we will have a roof full of PV panels, and also we will have PV panels to facade of the Lippulaiva. But in SPARCS project, actually, we have promised to make a feasibility study of this kind of electric battery and smart control systems, and we kind of did that and got so excited, so we decided to invest as well. So we had our first project meeting last week with the smart grid microgrid system provider Schneider that we are working together, and we also got a quite large investment support from the government of Finland. So we are really excited about this as well. So we have many different types of electricity consumption in Lippulaiva, and then we have this on-site electricity production and the electric battery. So the target of the system is to minimize energy costs, and we are also participating the reserve markets of electricity. And few thoughts about the benefits of on-site energy systems. I was, before joining Citycon, I made this one research together with my ex-colleague to the real estate companies, and we wanted to know the reasons why real estate companies choose on-site energy system and not district heating systems. So the top 3 targets to on-site energy systems was the profitability of the system, the second was sustainability, and third one being a forerunner. So as a Cityconner, I see that these 3 reasons and targets are quite important to us as well. So we want to, we have a important sustainability strategy, and we want to follow that, but of course the systems must be profitable as well. But if you look at the real estate's energy costs, is approximately 30% of the OPEX costs. And often in Finland, because it's a kind of cold country with like in Espoo we can have -20 degrees in the winter as well. So heating costs are the largest single cost item usually in real estate. Minimizing the heating costs and energy costs minimizes the OPEX cost, of course, as well. And this affects also the value of the property. Also, what was seen in the research that we did last year with my ex-colleague was that it's really active markets on on-site energy systems. So consultants and companies providing on-site energy systems are really active towards real estate companies, and that's how the project usually just easily starts. And of course, developed technology, for example, heat pump technology, the prices have gone down and so on. And what was seen also in that research, so price of the electricity and district heating has historically grown much faster if you compare it to consumer price index, and where usually the rents are tied tied to. Of course, district heating systems are very different in different cities in Finland, but this is the average district heating prices of Finland. Okay, I guess I give the floor to Wilhelm again. We are changing places. And
all right, so hello everyone, I'm back. And we're going a little bit further on the question that how does this then create value for a real estate company? Basically, we can divide these into 5 pieces, 3 of which I'll go through here and the next 2 on the next slide. But basically, through OPEX savings, you have a valuation increase of the building because decreasing OPEX increases the valuation of the assets. So that's how you count on the asset valuation. Because of that, you always have a possibility to, through investments in energy efficiency, renewable energy production, or waste management, or water efficiency, anything that decreases your OPEX has a potential to increase the valuation. And the larger the project and the quicker the payback time, the more it increases the valuation, of course. And this is then tied to green financing possibilities. So if a company has a green financing framework, or in other ways the capability to do green financing, that in itself can then lower the cost of capital for either the whole company or for green projects, depending a little bit on how you do your green financing. But that's a whole different ball game on how you do that. And of course, then that goes into a sort of a circle, provided that everything goes as planned. This is a very general picture of how this works, and it of course depends a lot on what sort of investments you do. So it can be anything from renewable energy, which for instance solar PV at this time typically in our centers, they have a payback time of something in between 8 and 12 years. And then it depends a little bit on how you do this. If you do it through your own investment or through a PPA or through a leasing or whatever you do, then energy investments becomes a little bit more complicated if you start counting on does that kill your need to do other renovations in time, and how can you take that into account in your valuation statements and so on and so forth. But maybe Anna will get into the nitty-gritty details of this. This is just the kind of overall picture how this creates value. The other part is then brand and image, risk management. I will not be going into the risk management very much since Anna will tell you more about that part. I'm here when we talk about brand and image, I'm not talking about marketing and advertising. I'm talking about the way that people see the company itself. So from our point of view, we can boil it down to looking from the eyes of our major stakeholders. So for tenants, of course, it reflects their own values and targets through where they are located. So if a company has a very high sustainability profile, of course, where they choose to start their store also is tied a little bit to what sort of building that is. This does, of course, not take away the fact that it's still location, 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 and location. That is important, but I would like to add a little bit of sustainability there at the end, at least when we talk about some sort of tenants. And then for the visitors, we know that it is quite a big chunk of visitors that at least reflect on the sustainability as part of their purchasing decisions, be it then what they visit and or what they buy. So this is of course a part for their choosing to visit our shopping centers then. From the investor perspective, the demand for green assets and green investments has grown very lot in the last years, market demand, and there is a lot of legislation coming with the EU Green Taxonomy and a lot of other smaller pieces of legislation which is driving this quite extensively. And then for at least us or everyone who develops new buildings, the municipalities and the ones who decide on what you can build and where is a quite big stakeholder. And for them as well, quite a lot of municipalities, at least in Finland and the other Nordics, have quite big, large, stringent sustainability targets. And for their sake, it is of course a question of that, does the new construction that's going on in their municipality, then does it help them to achieve their sustainability targets or not? Or so that is something that is increasingly important for many municipalities. For instance, what sort of building requirements they have, and also quite a lot of focus on transport there. I'll just give you a quick run through of how we have thought and done our green financing and Citycon. So we have a green financing framework that's basically a piece of paper that says what is green at Citycon and how and for what we can use the green debt. Then what is that? Well, it's green buildings, energy efficiency, renewable energy and waste management. Green buildings being certified buildings that have a energy threshold below something. So a certified building that is a BREEAM in use certification of very good or higher, or LEED Gold or higher, or BREEAM very good or higher for new constructions. Why we do this? Well, market demand. And then of course there are certain investors that need to invest at least part of their portfolio in green labeled assets, and that makes it important for them to find these investment possibilities, and that's a very good possibility for us to diversify our portfolio or our investor portfolio. And this, of course, there is a possibility for a little greenium in all of these green debt emissions. And what have we done? We've done 2 green bonds, now 3 green bonds and 1 hybrid bond and a sustainability-linked revolving credit facility. So we are more and more moving into financing through green financing mechanisms at Citycon. And just a quick run through here of what these green assets are. The share of green assets here is actually from end of year, so it has changed a little bit since what is written down here, but not substantially. Yeah, but I think that was it, and being a little bit mindful of time, I think we should hop over to not have any urgent questions.
There are actually raising questions, so we could maybe take that. I mean, you were highlighting here about the location in your presentation, and there is one question about that quite a lot to your location plays a crucial role, and for example, Lippulaiva, what you were presenting. So it's located on the metro station and close to other public transportation means as well. So how do you see the scalability to smaller cities as well? Kari Lilja has asked this question.
It's of course more difficult to scale this to smaller cities, and that is in line with our current strategy for the whole company. So our strategy is that we will be more and more present in the larger urban hubs in the Nordics. But of course there are also public transport options in smaller cities, but yeah, that will make it a little bit more difficult.
Right, thank you. And then there is one really closely related to Kaisa's presentation or part of the presentation, and reflecting to that you are already measuring many things online and in real time. For example, you mentioned this energy and virtual power plant things and flexibilities. And the question is that how do you see what are the next things you think that it's important to have real time information?
So what are the next things to have?
Yeah.
Well, we are still in a construction phase, so we still don't have any real life data. But how would I like to see it is the energy system as a whole. So I would like to be in the world where we don't have any separate heating system, separate cooling system, separate electricity system. So as together, and we would optimize all of them together. So we are going there because Schneider is also the provider of the automation system of all of the automation systems in Lippulaiva. So that's one way of being there. But of course, we are measuring a lot of information in our shopping centers. I don't know. Do you, Wilhelm, want to comment on that?
Well, real-time visitor amounts would be also good for the energy optimization, of course. And then that would be the next thing. We do, of course, measure that as well, but not in real time. So
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Right, and then there is following question from Nadadia that are you tracking the energy consumption on real time daily basis, like electricity or heating?
Yes,
so details level.
It's like hourly or minute basis. So that's very common in Finland nowadays, to have it like hourly basis at least.
Wonderful. Hey, thank you, and thank you both, Wilhelm and Kaisa. And we have in the end we have then time for the further questions, and now I give the floor to Anna Aaltonen, and actually I think he's also answering the questions about the future challenges, which was one of the question, and we can raise that after Anna's presentation. So Anna is a senior advisor of sustainability in Newsec, and she is telling us the mitigating real estate risks from sustainability perspective. So the floor is yours, Anna.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen for you. So you can see my presentation. Oh,
yes.
Thanks. Yeah, so my name is Anna Aaltonen, and I have worked for almost 6 years at Newsec in Finland, and my main work has been with real estate investors to help them with different kind of sustainability issues. And for those who don't know Newsec that well, we call ourselves the full service property house, and we offer different kind of property related consultancy services for mainly real estate owners, but also companies that use the buildings. We help them with real estate solutions. Our services comprise of technical management services, financial management services, and commercial management services. And on top of that, we offer, for example, sustainability services, which I represent here. I came to talk to you about risks, but I wanted to start with this picture, the vicious circle of blame, and this has traveled with me almost my whole career in sustainability, and it's more than 20 years old picture about green real estates or green buildings, but it's still valid, unfortunately, almost every day in my conversations today. And the idea goes that, well, the owners or the end users of the building say that they would like to have green buildings, but there aren't any available. And the designers and constructions say that, yeah, they would build or renovate sustainable buildings, but they aren't asked by the developers. The developers say that they would ask for them, but the investors aren't willing to pay for them. The investors say that, yeah, we would like to invest in that, but there is no demand for that. This is very often the case when we talk about sustainable solutions. Sometimes people say that, yeah, we are willing to do this, but this is the reason why we cannot. But in the last 2 years, there has been a slight change in this, and I can see it's becoming more and more rapid. And it's especially because the investor side are seeing it as a risk of not investing in sustainable buildings. And here are the risks I will briefly talk you about. There are 4 main risks here about sustainability and real estate. First risk is that we don't comply with laws. The second risk is that our buildings do not cope with the future weather. The third risk is that we're out of good financing terms or good investors in our building portfolio. And the fourth risk is that we haven't considered this huge drift in or transition to low carbon economy. And that's why our business will no longer cope in the future. So the first risk, we don't comply with laws, and this is an obvious risk. If your business or organization gets caught with not complying with laws, it can mean big financial consequences, but at least a big image risk. And on sustainability side, there is so much going on right now. For example, having energy certification on your buildings, or having electric plug-ins for electric vehicles on site. There are more demands in recycling, both on existing buildings and on construction. Right now we are discussing in Finland a lot about that in future you have to bill directly water consumption from the building users, which is a complex issue itself. And for example, in the new construction legislation in Finland, there will be demands for CO2 calculation for the construction and for whole building life cycle. So a lot of legislation to understand and to follow in sustainability field right now. Well, the other risk is that how do our buildings cope with the future weather? The unfortunate fact is that our climate is changing quite rapidly. The temperatures will rise in the future, especially in the urban areas. There will be more intense rainfalls in the future. I once saw a fact that half of the world's yearly rainfall falls down in just 12 days. And this is coming more and more intense in the future. So how do our buildings cope with the stormwater? And there will be also other more extreme weather conditions, for example, more intense storms. And how do our buildings users cope with that? For example, very long heat waves, and are the buildings still comfortable for users? And this is really a real financial risks risk and to consider also in Finland, but all around the globe. I just noticed an article in Time magazine where there was a discussion of how will the properties value decrease in Houston or in US, and there are like flood maps of what are the odds and how much the property value will decrease in the near future. So it's really a thing that a building portfolio owner must consider in building portfolios. Okay, and then maybe the most changing fact is that the risk that we're out of good financing terms or investors. Now everybody is speaking about EU green taxonomy and what will it mean in the future. It's not finished yet, and we don't fully know the content, what it will be, but it will, whether your buildings will be EU taxonomy compliant or not, the taxonomy will determine what are the what does it mean to have green buildings. So whether you will have EU taxonomy compliant buildings or not, you have to consider in your buildings, for example, the energy efficiency, the green energy production, the water saving issues, biodiversity, and circular economy. These are all the issues that EU taxonomy considers right now. And on top of that, there are coming more and more instruments in the market of green investment. For example, Invesco launched just this green building ETF last month, and it requires to have a high level of greenness in the buildings to invest in. Yeah, and the fourth risk I present here is that the transitional risks. It somewhat sums up the previous risks I discussed about. But right now we are in major transition to the low carbon economy. And in any business at all, is it real estate or other, you have to consider this, what are the risks and changes that might come up. It can be, for example, technology issues, that what kind of technology you have to adapt in your buildings in order to cope with the future economic surroundings. One obvious risk in this is that how will the energy price, for example, behave in the future? It's quite an obvious risk that the energy price will rise. Kaisa showed the same picture in her presentation, but there is evidence that it is a clear risk that the energy prices will go up in the future as well as it has done previously. Now in Finland, the energy companies are right now trying to solve how they will produce carbon neutral energy in the future. So this most obviously will have cost effects on the energy prices and buildings that way too. So I've presented you the risks now, but what do investors do to mitigate these risks, and what's the benefit for it? Well, this is the boring bit, but most important bit, in my view, is to have profound and good sustainability management. That's the starting point of managing all the risks. And it starts from sustainability reporting, because if you don't know what are the most important issues in your building portfolio and what are the biggest impacts on sustainability, then you cannot manage the whole risks and diminish the sustainability negative sustainability impacts of your building portfolio. And having reporting and dedicated people working around sustainability, it leads to the adaptive organizational culture, which leads to better innovations in your business, and also cooperation and sharing knowledge between other businesses, for example, the energy companies and service providers with new excellent solutions to improve sustainability. And overall, it leads to having license to operate in the field. It's becoming more and more a thing you have to have now. Clear sustainability goals and targets, and clear vision of what is your sustainability level and how you will improve it in the future in order to stay in the market. Here is an example of our clients, what we have done with our clients to who we do full sustainability management services. It's that we map their buildings and try to identify the buildings that might have the biggest transitional risk. So, for example, to check the emission intensity of the building portfolio, and based on this, make decision on what are the buildings you should focus on, and also if you want to keep them in your portfolio in the future. So there is a picture that the most emitting buildings are here in the far right. Well, another thing that is a sort of easy fix to improve your capability of your buildings to cope with the future weather, and also to have better financing terms from investors, is to develop the on-site biodiversity. It's something that it's discussed in EU taxonomy, and it's also very much coming into discussion right now. We're in the middle of climate change crisis, and we sort of have solutions for that if you just take them. But the loss of biodiversity is much bigger scale problem, and we're just starting to figure out and understand that we should rapidly do something about it. So buildings, real estate are obviously also on central role on that. And here is a picture of Lidl, who has made a biodiversity plans for their shops, and you can really see if now my nearby Lidl has done some renovations, and there have become so many more trees, for example, and that there are many ways to improve the biodiversity on your building portfolio. And it also improves the capability of cope with the weather, because there are stormwater management possibilities, and also it can improve the building capability to face storms. For example, the roofing might be better considered that way. Yeah, the other obvious thing to do on buildings is to invest in on-site energy production, and Kaisa told in her presentation as well about this a bit. Yeah, but it will decrease the operation expenses and protect the properties from increase in energy prices. And there is evidence that it appeals tenants better and increases the property value. And I just asked our energy managers at Newsec that what's the payback time right now for geothermal or solar panel projects in general, and they said that it's most commonly about 6 to 9 years in their projects, the payback time return in invest. So it's a good investment itself to have this, not just it pays back a bit better than maybe some building investments. And the last example of what building owners can do, and for example, Citycon does this, the green building certifications. And it's sort of a way to manage a building's sustainability issues and develop it. It's a management method. It also takes consideration, for example, biodiversity and on-site energy production. And there is also research about how much better is the financial benefits of having a building certificates. It does cost to have the certificate or to do it and do different kind of solutions, but it really pays back also. Yeah, so in summary, having these sustainability actions really are beneficial in lowering the asset risk, but it hires the rental rates, the occupancy rates, and the asset value. It lowers the operating expenses, insurance costs. And on top of that, it provides improved disclosures to stakeholders. And this is something really coming up right now, also due to EU green taxonomy partly. But now you have to have really good documents and data about your building portfolio and sustainability issues, so that to give for the investors. Yeah, thank you. I would like to hear some questions.
Thank you, Anna. Really interesting presentation. I mean, there is one question really related about the kind of like the risks about the building type, and Kari is asking that how actually the investors are thinking about the risks when you are kind of like for example, shopping center. That what about the shopping centers after 10 or even kind of like more years, that how do you kind of, if there's a transformation of the building, so how do you take that into account, that maybe in the future only part of the building is a shopping center and part of it might be from daycare purposes or other purposes? So how do you kind of like the flexibility of the building, and is that taken into account in the risk management?
Yes, that's something we discuss a lot about, that what are the possibilities to transform the buildings later on, and it's something, yes, we discuss about it a lot, that there is here comes back to the vicious circle of blame, because they're saying that yeah, it would be good, but there are nobody saying that we should build this kind of solutions. So yeah, it should be considered, and I think it would be a wise thing to think when you build a building, that what are the future purposes after 50 years, for example. But I think, yeah, that's something that the construction companies and investors and designers should think together, all the possibilities. And it costs more, of course, in the beginning to have these kind of solutions and think about them, but it would be wise to do it.
Right. What about Wilhelm and Kaisa? What are your reflections from the Citycon's perspective about this? How much do you think about when you are building Lippulaiva or other shopping centers, that about the flexibility about the future?
Yeah, I would say we think about it a lot, and of course, for example, Lippulaiva is really a good example of this. So we have mixed use premises. So we have different. We are really not only a shopping center. We have offices, we have kindergarten, we have public services such as library. If you think about Iso-Omena, we have even larger public services in here. So this is really something that we are considering about a lot.
Right, wonderful. And just for the audience, so just raise your hand or ask the question in the chat if you have something on kind of like burning things or comments also. How do you see the future? Hey, I would like to ask a really kind of like key question. What I think many people are thinking that, well, I mean, if you want to increase the sustainability, so what is the most cost-efficient way to do it? What would you choose as a first mean to do that? Who wants to take the...
Well, first of all, the question is, what aspect of sustainability are we looking at now? So if we're looking at energy efficiency, or are we looking at some social issues? So the answer will be vastly different if we look at different perspectives. But if we look at energy efficiency, I would say go all in on heat pumps and ground source heat pumps, at least in the Nordics.
Right. Anna, do you have any reflections on that? What would you pick?
Yeah, I would have said exactly the same as Wilhelm, that in my perspective, I quite don't understand if there is so good solutions that they are available right now to have energy efficient buildings and on-site energy production. Those are like the easy and they have good payback, so good investments in the project.
Right.
Of course, if I can add, it depends the city and the, for example, district heating systems that the location is because district heating systems are very different in different cities. So if we are considering carbon neutral heating, there already are district heating systems that are in that place already. So of course, then it's a matter of costs. What is the cost of district heating compared to on-site energy system? So that's a different question, but
yeah. But in that perspective, there is a discussion of the district heating, how it is produced carbon neutral. So if it burns biomass, for example, what's the risk of that not being labeled as carbon neutral in the future? And that's something also largely discussed.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and considering biogenic carbon emissions will probably be needed to be calculated in at least scope 3 in a couple of years. So you're not going to get away from that. Sorry.
Yeah, that's true. That's a lot of discussion related to that one. Hey, Pekka I mean, Pekka, would you like to ask your question? I mean, I know that Pekka is expert on real estate and he has a long career on this. So please, Pekka.
Yeah, thanks also, Anna, for your presentation. I was just wondering, first I was thinking that what about these higher rental rates? And then I'm thinking about tenants in this equation. And then I was just starting to turn it around, that you are already setting certain requirements or criteria for current tenants or potential new tenants, that in terms of sustainability of each tenant's business and products. Is this already going on?
Well, to a small extent, I would say.
Yeah.
So we tend not to say that. I mean, as long as it's a business that fits our shopping centers or the tenant mix, so to say, we tend not to say no thanks to tenants, and that it's mostly, of course, as long as they comply with our rules in our shopping centers. So, for instance, we have rules that everyone needs to sort their waste and so on and so forth. So that's, of course, in the contracts in that way, but otherwise not at the moment very much now.
Okay.
With our customers, it goes to the category of maybe governance risk and what are the backgrounds of that you know your client when you take the company who rents the building. So it's checked that they are complying with laws and no, for example, money laundering is happening. But in terms of if their business is considered like green or not, they are not visible yet, like choosing your clients that way.
Okay, thank you. I assume that this will be like increasing in the future.
Hopefully.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
If I can raise a following question to Anna and Wilhelm, do you see that is it in other way around, that if do we already have tenants that are asking that I can rent the premises in Citycon, for example, if or are they asking sustainability from us? Is it increasing?
Yes, maybe not with the actual if, but we do have tenants who do ask about sustainability questions and energy efficiency and certifications and so on and so forth when they are thinking about leasing premises from us and while they are our tenants. Yes.
Yeah, we have also seen this slight change in demand, and there are companies who are asking for carbon neutral spaces, for example. Not many yet, but there are. And we have done questionnaires for residential building users, and there is like the demand is that they presume that the building owner is sustainable and striving for carbon neutrality. And there some of the residential building users are also willing to pay a little extra for having carbon neutral home, for example. So yeah, that's something. At least when we ask them, they say that yeah, we want.
Hey, what about then the kind of like for the future? I mean, you both showed the models kind of like that, how you are thinking about the sustainability and how we are modeling the risk and based on what criteria you are doing the investments. But how do you see that the current models and compared to what is the ideal model, or how do you thinking that you should develop that further in the kind of like to taking into account all the aspects what are coming in the future? Or do you see that there is something what you need to develop further?
Well, I think you have to constantly be developing because yeah, sustainability issues they consider it's a huge field of issues and consider a lot. And they are not, in most cases, they are not that black and white, the issues that you have to consider in your investments. For example, so if you have criteria about investing, you have to be able to be transformed quite rapidly sometimes because the market is changing fast.
Right. Yeah, good point. Wilhelm, do you have points for that? How do you thinking?
Well, I kind of think the same, that of course sustainability, what is considered sustainable today is not going to be considered sustainable in 5 years. So you of course need, it's a moving target, so you need to be sorry, we are out of energy here, so we'll plug in some solar panel into our computer and let's keep on going. Nice, now it stopped saying that we are out of battery, so thanks for the technical support, Kaisa. But yeah, so I think it is, you need to remember that it's a moving goal, so you can't think that what you've done now is going to be enough in 5 years.
Right. Hey, then there is a question specifically to Citycon, that are the tenants aware of their own energy usage in their apartments or in their spaces on the daily basis? And do you have an example for displaying projects or the statistics?
We will have that in Lippulaiva for the whole project, and tenants are of course aware to some extent, at least, on their own energy usage, especially when it comes to electricity, since quite a lot of them have their own tenant metering, so they receive a bill that it's larger if they use more electricity. So I hope they're aware of that at least. But Then of course for heating and cooling, not so much when it's for the whole shopping center premises, but we do go through that with our tenants in monthly meetings and so on and so forth. So how the energy has gone.
Right. So it's on monthly basis, but not yet on the daily basis.
No.
Right. Okay. Do you see that there is a kind of like desire to have that on the daily basis, and also for the Anna that based on your client experience? So do you see that there is a trend or desire or wish to go on the daily basis and not on the monthly basis energy consumption?
But I mean, from our perspective, I haven't gotten a single question from a tenant that they would want to know their electricity and heating cooling consumption on a daily basis. No, not yet. I think we are maybe getting there, but
yeah, I think also that tenants they want to know that the buildings they use are sustainability, but they are not maybe often that keen on having exact facts, or that's not their business. They want to just have good premises to do their business and be assured that they are sustainable.
Okay, so this highlights kind of like the idea of the certification of the building, and that type of like approach is maybe easier for the tenants to understand, if I understood correctly, or do you see that approach?
Well, yeah, certification is one way to show that it's sustainable, but also when you have certified buildings, you could show so much more to the tenants, the things that you do there to make it sustainable. So yeah, that's one way to show it, but maybe some other information would be beneficial as well. But the carbon neutrality is one like easy thing to understand if it's there or not.
Okay, and coming back to that, I mean, we have the energy certification by law in all European countries, and then there is some of the certification are also showing the CO2 emissions, and then we have all these BREEAM and LEED and all that commercial certifications. So do you see that that's only good that we have many different certifications, or is there a risk that people don't know what are the differences? And do you see that all those certifications are well suited in our conditions, or should they be tailor-made? What is your kind of like reflections?
Well, I kind of think that it's good that there are several different measures, because making sustainability a one-stop shop that's comprised into one letter or one number is very difficult. So in that sense, I think it's a good thing. Then when it comes to do people understand what it means? No. I mean, you of course understand that if the scale goes from D to A, then A is better and A+++ is better. But I mean, not really. But I don't think that you actually would need to. I mean, you don't know how to fix the electrical systems in your home either. So why would you need to know that very specifically? You understand if something is wrong, and that's kind of what you need to know. And I would maybe say that that's the way to look at it, that you should understand that if it has absolutely no sustainability credentials whatsoever, then you should maybe look into that why.
Right. Anna, your experience or reflections to that?
Yeah, I also think that the content of the certifications are pretty much the same. So I think it's okay to have different kind of certifications, but and if some certificate is easier to get, or it doesn't like require many sustainability issues to be done differently than, for example, the Finnish legislation, which is quite sustainable itself, its perspective, then maybe the certificates will get a quickly reputation that it's not that significant, that certificate. So I don't think it's a risk, but of course it's difficult for tenants, for example, who are not building professionals, to understand what's the value of these certificates compared to this. So, yeah, but that's what when it comes to communicating with the tenants and explaining the things behind the certificate instead of just telling that you are in the lead premise.
Right, thank you. I'm just seeing the watch and our time is running out. I mean, even though we are just starting the discussion, you have so excellent presentations. So, but unfortunately, we need to start finishing. Is there still some question for the audience? We might have time for one quick question if there is, or comments or something if you wish to have. And meanwhile, if you are thinking about the last question, so I just encourage you all to visit SPARCS website, which you can find www.sparks.eu project.com, and there you can find the results and also our coming webinars. So, right. But if not any burning questions in the end, so I want to once more thank you, Anna, thank you, Kaisa and Wilhelm, for your wonderful insights and really nice approach to sustainability, which is a really complex but also important topic which we need to develop all the time further. So thank you for your insights, and thank you, audience, for your active participation. And we'll be in touch, and I will send you the link to the recording. So thank you all once more, and I wish you all a pleasant day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.